let's get to our next insider on the line right now. Robert Murray joining us, and this is a big day. Robert, we had you on the other day, but now we can officially say welcome to the FT fam.
Yeah.
You'll be one of our regular insider contributors, man. We love talking to you, so thank you for agreeing to talk to us more frequently now.
No, thank you guys for having me. I've been a huge fan of you guys for years. I've known Eric for years, covering him with the Brewers, and he's always just incredible to me. So to be part of this, to be on here with you more, like, this is an honor, and I'm going to make it the best decision you guys have ever made.
Well, welcome aboard, rookie. I know you got some, like, you were just like a baby face. Now you're a sauna baby face guy, but we treat rookies on the FT network pretty well, but don't get comfortable.
Don't take that.
No hazing, so that's good.
No hazing.
No, not hazing. No hazing.
No hazing.
Can't use the word hazing. No.
All right, so let's get into biz, shall we? Let's start with your thoughts on the Mets-Rangers trade that broke last night.
Yeah, it was a real surprise seeing that 1-for-1 trade there, but overall, it made a ton of sense. And Marcus Semien's name has been mentioned on the trade block for basically the entire offseason. I want to say Evan Grant, who covers the Rangers, started it. And I asked Chris Young about it at the GM meetings, and he didn't necessarily dismiss the idea. Like, he wasn't like trying to trade him by any means, but they were very open to the idea. And when this scenario presented itself, it made sense for both sides to consider here. Like, for the Rangers, you move off of Semien, you end up adding a guy like Brandon Nimmo, who is a tremendous option there. He adds leadership, it creates more payroll flexibility, because that was a big priority for them in terms of trying to shed some payroll, and they did so with the non-tenders. They did so with this trade, and it's been a real focus for them. But for the Rangers' perspective, I totally get it. And from the Mets' perspective, I think it's really interesting here, adding Marcus Semien, moving on from a guy like Brandon Nimmo, who is as respected as anyone in that clubhouse, has been there his entire career. There's so many layers to it that, like, it's hard to dissect, but at the end of the day, it made sense for both teams, and that's why they did it, because they've been talking about it for a couple weeks now, or a few weeks.
Now, there's a lot of impacts here. So you think about Pete Alonso, you think about Díaz, Edwin Díaz here. Like, what especially is the impact on those two guys? What happens if the Mets don't get any of those guys? So, like, where would they go after that?
Yeah, I think Will Salmon of The Athletic put it really well. It shows that even though these guys have been with the organization for so long, like, David Stearns isn't afraid to move on for what he feels is best for the team. And I think that's a really good attribute by him, because we've seen GMs both in baseball and in other sports as well get really attached to players that they've been around long term, or that they drafted, or like that they signed as free agents, or just whatever. And it's led to some issues. And with Stearns, he wasn't afraid to move on from Nimmo. And if that's the case, he's definitely not going to be afraid to move on from Edwin Díaz or Pete Alonso. Like, that being said, they want to retain both of those guys if possible. And then also, Stearns didn't rule out adding another impact player, even if they ended up re-signing both of those guys. So from the Mets' perspective, they definitely want to keep both of those guys. But that being said, let's say that Díaz leaves in free agency. You can immediately go after a Devin Williams type, who Stearns was with in Milwaukee and knows him better than almost anybody in baseball. They could go after a Robert Suarez type, which is a really intriguing option because he was dominant in San Diego. He's a very good player. Both of those guys are going to do very well in free agency. So if they lose Díaz, it's not the end of the world. If they end up losing Pete Alonso, they're going to have to get creative in trying to figure out how to fill first base, and because he's as durable as any guy in ball. Like, he can consistently play around 162 games a year, which not many people can say. But they're definitely, I definitely would not rule out either of them leaving, especially since Stearns showed that he's willing to part with those kind of guys.
All right, let's stick with the Rangers since we're talking a little bit about the Rangers here.
Yeah.
They're non-tenders. Adolis, García, and Jonah Heim. Obviously, Adolis García is, we just talked to Jim Bowden about it, and he's kind of that high upside. But Jonah Heim was an all-star catcher. The catching position this year in free agency is thin. Does that bode well for Jonah Heim? Does that bode well for the fact that somebody could take him on a flyer? Or do you feel like his value has been decreased enough that, you know what, he's looking at like a James McCann type of contract where it's a 1 year, we might get you 90 games type of contract.
Yeah, he's going to end up benefiting from this. And I don't necessarily think he's going to end up getting the contract that he was doing arbitration. I want to say it was for around $6 million that he was supposed to get in ARB. But there's going to be plenty of different suitors here. You look at it, you have, I mean, I could end up seeing a team like the Milwaukee Brewers taking a look at it, like, because they, better than anyone, they value the backup catcher position, and they just value the catcher position in general. And obviously they have William Contreras there, but they at the trade deadline last year, they added Danny Jensen from the Rays, who they thought could end up being an impact guy. So maybe it could end up being penciled in there. The San Diego Padres can make a lot of sense there as well, because they've been looking for a catcher for a couple of years now. They've tried getting different guys over trade or through free agency. Hasn't necessarily worked out. But there's so many different teams that can end up being a possibility for him, which will only lead to the bidding getting more lucrative. Again, I don't think $6 million is going to be the number for him. But that being said, too, like Adolis García, he is a player. There's not many people who can match the power that he's got. And obviously, he's not like the perfect player. He's got his flaws to his game, but the power immediately makes him a player that should be of interest to a lot of different teams. And like, this isn't necessarily something that I've heard, but I would love to see him with the Pittsburgh Pirates, because they need big boppers in that lineup. They want to end up upgrading the offense in a big way. And we've seen them connected to Schwarber and to some of these other guys. Garcia, I mean, I don't necessarily know how much money he's going to get, but clearly the Pirates are willing to spend because they were after Josh Naylor and some connected to some of these other guys. So I would love to see Garcia possibly being a fit with the Pirates, but he's going to have a bunch of other teams after him as well.
Maybe the guy that is most coveted in free agency isn't always the Kyle Tucker, isn't always the Kyle Schwarber, Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger has been linked to possibly the Angels. And obviously any team wants him because of the versatility. Do you feel like the Angels are in a spot where, hey, you know what? We are taking a gamble on Grayson Rodriguez if it's a gamble, and now we're going to try to just solidify and get another player in there? Or do you think it's more of a ploy from Bellinger's side, hoping he gets to go back to the Yankees, hoping he gets to go to a team that's closer to contention?
Yeah, as soon as the Angels traded Taylor Ward, my mind immediately went to, like, could they pursue a guy like Cody Bellinger? And as John Heyman reported, like, they have checked in there. And if I could see Artie Moreno, who owns the Angels, being just a guy who just gets totally obsessed with Bellinger, I could see it. But that being said, do I see that happening? Probably not. And one of the prerequisites for Bellinger, and his agent Scott Boras, I believe, made this clear at the GM meetings, is he wants to win. And if you can end up, Bellinger's gonna have a bunch of different teams involved. It's gonna be the Yankees, a bunch of other contending teams. And he's been with the Yankees, he's been with the Cubs, and he's been with the Dodgers. What do all three of those have in common? They've all been contending teams. And going to a team that's not necessarily contending after being with those organizations would be really tough on anyone, but especially a guy like Bellinger. Would being close to LA again be enticing to him? I'm sure it would, but winning is really important for him. And that's part of why I think that's pretty unlikely. Money does talk, and the Angels can end up offering him a deal that he just can't refuse. And maybe that's how he ends up going there. That being said, though, Perry Manassian, their GM there, said that they have more flexibility now after moving Ward than they had envisioned going into the offseason. So maybe that's possible, but I just do not see that fit happening for Bellinger. And I would think a return to the Yankees or just going to a different contending team is far more likely.
Hey, for all the parents out there with teens, it's more hectic now than ever.
Cash App's going to help, not hurt.
With the Cash App card, available to teens 13 to 17 with sponsorship by an eligible parent or guardian, every transaction triggers a real-time notification for you to see, empowering your teen to practice independence while giving you peace of mind by keeping track of their spending. You can also manage everything directly from your own Cash App account without having to switch between the two. With the Cash App card, you and your teen's balances receive 24/7 fraud monitoring. And if something ever feels off, you have the ability to lock their card right from your phone in just one tap. For a limited time, new Cash App customers can earn $10 if they use code FAMILY10 in their profile at sign up and send $5 to a friend within 14 days. Terms apply. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partner. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Direct deposit and promotions provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures.
Michael King came off a little bit of an injury, got healthy at the end of the season. The Marlins are supposedly in on the Marlins pitching factory. The Marlins, I know the minor league pitching coach, Jeremy Powell, before he got traded, he was the guy that kind of was instrumental in all these guys. Is this a shift to, well, you know what? We don't have a guy that's creating all these pitchers. They're all up in the big leagues right now. Do we want a veteran type? Is this a shift from we're not just going to use our younger pitchers for the Marlins, or is it all hogwash?
I don't think it's hogwash at all. It's really cool coming on this show and being able to talk about the Marlins, and previously we talked about the Pirates being teams that could contend and try to end up adding in free agency and add meaningfully. And with the Marlins, their interest in King is, I think it's real. And you can look at it from a number of different ways here. Like, they far exceeded expectations last year. Clayton McCullough did a terrific job in Miami, and they have a pitching staff that allows them so much different flexibility there. Like Sandy Alcantara, they didn't move him. Edward Cabrera, they didn't move him. They have super high expectations for a guy like Yuri Perez. And those three together give them just endless possibilities. It's kind of like what we've been talking about with the Pirates there too. And if you end up adding a guy like Michael King to that rotation, you have a front four that's as good as almost any in baseball. He's got tremendous upside. There's teams that love Michael King around the league, and he's going to do very well in free agency, and especially so. I think that showed after he made it. It was kind of a no-brainer for him to turn down the qualifying offer. But you can end up having the flexibility, or you can have those four leading the rotation, or you sign King, and it allows you to maybe move one of those starting pitching pieces to improve the offense. I don't know which one would be more likely, but it's a scenario that would give that front office and Peter Bendix just so much different flexibility and options that I think it would be a really good thing for them. But I hope they continue to try to add, because them contending and also getting the Pirates contending as well is just only going to be a great thing for baseball.
Let me ask you this, and I had another question, but just thinking now, can you see him going back to the Yankees on a little deal, a little nugget over there back to New York, or no?
I don't think it's impossible at all. Like, we've seen the Yankees, like they need to add pitching, and they're going to be connected to bats. They're going to be connected to bullpen pieces, but a guy like Michael King for them would make a whole lot of sense. And we've seen players after getting traded, they've signed back with their teams in free agency. It's not the most likely scenario by any means, but it's definitely an option that I think both sides should consider. And if they end up offering King the best deal in free agency, I think for his perspective, you absolutely have to go out and do it. But his market is going to be very lucrative. I think he's going to end up doing very well in free agency. And the Yankees, like even Steinbrenner said that his ideal goal would be to cut payroll. They're going to figure that out around the winter meetings time is what he said. So we'll see there. But I hope they don't cut payroll, because they're the Yankees. They should be able to go out and sign just about anybody. And that just, it sounds really weird to me.
Yeah, definitely. And talk about a little more trade possibilities here. I think I know your answer, but Tarik Skubal, the best pitcher in all the land, left-handed wise. Talk to me about where you think he might get traded, if he might get traded. What do you think, Robert?
I think every team in baseball should be checking in on this guy. Like, how could they not? Like, you have him possibly being mentioned on the trade market. You have to check in to see what the price is going to be, and the price is just going to be absolutely insane. And as it should be. As you said, he's the best pitcher in all the land. He's the best pitcher in baseball, and he's left-handed. He's only signed for one more year, and that could be what entices the Tigers to like really listen on any trade inquiries. But that being said, you have Skubal in Detroit. He wants to be there. The organization wants him to be there. I just don't see any real possibility of him being moved at this point. I've been surprised before, but this one would really surprise me. And my expectation is that he starts the season in Detroit. He does not have a new contract because they're so far apart, is what various reports are saying about that. And also his agent, Scott Boras, prefers his players to establish on the open market. So I don't see that being a real possibility there. But he's going to probably start the season in Detroit. And if they're out of contention at the deadline, then we could end up seeing him be moved. But my guess is he plays out the season in Detroit on the same deal, enters free agency after the season, and then it's going to be the bidding war of all bidding wars for his services.